For context, the difference between the things that I'm saying on here and the things that I do at work. Um, in the instructor training materials, they run through like how you should explain problems to students. The idea of this is fantastic. Instructors should know how to explain things to students. I have absolutely no qualms with the premise of this. But there was an example, which was we're going to do 2/3 of 12. What is 2/3 of 12? Something like that. The exact phrasing of it I don't recall, and it doesn't really matter. The illustration that was given was like this. And you're supposed to explain how you get there. And just at a glance, I'm like, well, that doesn't even make sense as the source of an explanation. And my boss was like, well, what are you talking about? And my coworker too, for a minute, didn't understand what I was saying either. He was like, well, but that is 2/3 of 12. And I was like, well, yes, it is, but how do you... In order to find this, you have to know what 1/3 of 12 is in the first place. And if you know that, then you've already solved the problem, so there's no point in drawing it. What I would do, if I'm explaining this, I would do this. Okay? So we're going to make groups of 3. What the hell? Why is it... Okay. I would make groups of 3. Why is the spacing like this? There we go. Okay, so I'm going to make groups of 3, right? So we have 6, 9, and I know I'm doing groups of 3 because that's the denominator. So what I'm doing is I'm making groups of 3 until I get to 12. And if we count this out, that's 12. Okay, so now 2 groups of this is here, this one, and this one. So we can separate this off. And now it's these 8. That's how I would find it. What we do is we take the fact that we're dividing by 3, undo that, and just make groups of 3 until we get 12. And then once we have groups of 3 that give us 12, take 2 out of every 3. Right? It will be the case that this is equivalent to this at the end. It's computationally equivalent to this. But this doesn't explain anything. This explains absolutely nothing right here. This is not an explanation. Okay? This is the sort of thing that I'm talking about with the way that we teach mathematics. We're like, oh, you jumped to the answer that you know what the answer is, and then you're trying to backtrack from that. And what happens is teachers and whatever, people in the industry will say, well, you have to teach the basics first as a means of justifying this kind of nonsense. Because they don't actually understand how to explain it from first principles. Like, this example was just striking because my boss actually never understood what my point was. Like, I said it like 5 times and explained it and walked through it like twice, very patiently and carefully. And after a minute, my coworker was like, oh yeah, no, I see what you're saying. Like, this doesn't explain anything. But at the end of it, my boss walked away saying, oh no, you don't understand. We just have to explain the basics first. I'm like, yeah, I've heard this from every teacher I have ever met when they're teaching the wrong way. Right? English teachers trying to teach that English uses an alphabet, even though we know that English isn't written alphabetically. If you can read English, you know for a fact that English isn't written alphabetically. So what fucking crazy shit are you saying that English has an alphabet? No, it doesn't. You know this. Right? Or 1 + 1 is 2. No, it isn't. Only if your units are commensurable is that reliably true. And you know this, right? 1 dog + 1 dog is 2 dogs. 1 dog + 1 airplane is not 2 of anything. Maybe 2 airplane wings. Unless it's a biplane, and then it's not. Oi, okay, yeah. But people always go back to, oh, we have to teach the basics first, because what they did is they jumped to their knowledge, their conclusion, and they're trying to present that as the reason, right? This is really, really common. Religious apologetics revolves around this. Dedekin's concepts, the entire group of logicists, for the most part, their arguments about how mathematics works revolved around this. This is how human brains work. Right? Human minds are really good at taking your conclusion and then trying to make an explanation based on the conclusion when that's the wrong direction to go. Right? And this was just a really nice example of that, because this is built from knowing what a third of 12 is. But if you can't do this, the reason will be that you don't know what a third of 12 is. So this doesn't explain shit.